mode. Can everyone see the Perfect. Thank you. Can everyone see the slides okay?
Yes.
All right, wonderful. Okay, so I'm going to go through several slides here, and I will probably save. Oh, thank you. Somebody put it in the chat that they can also see the slides. I'm probably I'm probably going to save Q&A for the end, mostly because sometimes I have a hard time juggling looking at the slides and the chat at the sort of at the same time. So I will save questions, but we'll have plenty of time for questions at the end. But really, my aim for today is really to just kind of go through, the journey to school psychology. So, what is a school psychologist? What is the role of a school psychologist? What do we do? And then to go over the school psychology MAAC program at UB a little bit more specifically, and then we'll have a Q&A at the end. So, I'm not sure how familiar everyone on the call is with a school psychologist. I know that when I was applying to school psych programs, to be honest, I don't think I knew at all what a school psych did. Although, um, it was interesting to apply to a program where you had no idea what they did. And so we generally do like to see that, individuals do have sort of a solid understanding of the role of the school psychologist before applying to the program. And one of the reasons for that is that we don't, it can be hard to start a program and then realize, oh, this is actually not what I was imagining a school psych do and doesn't really align with sort of my career goals or sort of my interests. And so it's wonderful that you're all on this call today to hopefully learn a little bit more about it. So don't do what I did, I guess, is the moral of that story. Although I ended up loving and I still love the field of school psychology. School psychs are uniquely qualified members of the school teams that support students' ability to learn and manage teachers' sort of ability to teach. They apply expertise in mental health, learning, and behavior to help children and youth succeed academically, socially, behaviorally, and emotionally. And we also partner with a variety of adults, so families, teachers, school admin, and other professionals to sort of create safe environments that strengthen that homeschool community connection. So, if you're interested in sort of looking at like what do school psychs do after they graduate with an MAAC? And probably not surprising, the majority work in the public school system. So 86% work in public schools. And then we see this is across the country. This isn't just data from like New York or Western New York. But then we do see a small percentage working in some sort of other organization. So whether that's a college or university setting, in a private school, a private practice, a faith-based school, Department of Ed, or perhaps a clinical or a hospital setting. I will note that in many of these organizations, you do need a doctorate in school psychology or related field. So usually to work in like a college or a university setting as like a faculty member, you would need your doctorate. To work in like private practice or usually to work in like a more clinical based setting, you would need your doctorate in school psych, at least in the state of New York. Sometimes states have a little bit different regulations about that. And then if we look at sort of the demographic makeup of the workforce of school psychs, we see sort of an overrepresentation of women. So about 83% of schools of those that are employed as school psychs are women, and 16% are men. And then when we look further at racial and ethnic characteristics, we also see that we have an overrepresentation also of white individuals. And so you can see that, very kind of consistent with many sort of helping related fields. We're seeing a lot of, a little bit more of imbalances more towards females, a little bit more towards white females. We see about 5% of school psychs identify as Black or African American, about 2% identify as Asian, and 6% identify as Hispanic. This data is a little bit older. It's from 2014, though, and I would say that the field is becoming increasingly diverse really across the country, we are trying to really diversify our workforce and our field to better reflect the students and the families in which we serve and sort of work with. And so there's been a lot of efforts. To sort of correct a little bit of some of this overrepresentation and some of these sort of imbalances. And this is particularly important because we know that the students within the public schools in which we work, are increasingly diverse and also increasingly present with diverse needs. So again, this data is a couple years old here, but we do know that, a little bit under half of students, about 46% of students identify as white, 28% as Hispanic, 15% as Black, 6% as Asian. A little bit, approximately 5% identify as two or more races, and then less than 1% of students identify as American Indian, Alaska Native, or Pacific Islander. And then also, about 86%, so majority of school psychs are also English only practitioners or psychologists. Again, there's a really big need within the field to have school psychologists who have more linguistic diversity. So about 7% are also able to speak Spanish. About 1% are able to communicate with American Sign Language, and then about 5% speak, another language. And so once again, especially we see a lot more bilingual schools, so there really is a need for more bilingual school psychologists to be able to appropriately serve our students and families. So, sometimes there is some confusion around some of the similarities and differences between school mental health practitioners, particularly between the role of a school psychologist and a school counselor. And so there's a little bit difference in both the degree and then also the role, although generally school psychs do work very closely with the school counselors within that school district or within their school building. Um, so school counselors are professionals with at least a master's degree in school counseling and state certification or licensure in school counseling. Typical coursework includes things like human growth and development, research and testing, career development, social and cultural awareness, individual counseling, group counseling, and theories and framework. Whereas school psychs are professionals with advanced degrees such as a master's in psychology and state licensure certification in school psychology. And our coursework typically includes academic and learning intervention, so how to help teachers with students that might have some academic difficulties or students with learning disabilities. There's much more of an emphasis in school psychology on assessment and testing. We also do mental health interventions. We do a lot of assessment and have a lot of involvement with special education services within the school district. We're highly involved in crisis response and recovery. We look at research and efficacy of programs, resilience and risk factors for students. And often we look at things from like a systems level lens, so looking at things like school climate and culture and how that's impacting students within the school, sort of, and the community. So there is a lot of overlap as it can sort of be seen here. But I think some major differences are really related to, that academic and learning interventions, assessment and testing, and special education services are really where we have a little bit more of a expertise compared to school counselors. Although, like I said, a lot of collaboration, or we have a lot of collaborations with school counselors as well as with school social workers. And we also have a lot of collaboration with school speech language pathologists, school occupational therapists, so other sort of professionals within the school that are all working to support students. So the National Association of School Psychologists has a wonderful website. If you're exploring the field of school psych, I would encourage you to check out the website. You can just Google it and it'll show up. And they have a lot of information about the field and graduation and different programs and things like that. NASP has also created a practice model. So this was updated in 2020, and we're going to look at this in a little bit more detail. But this is sort of the overall model here. And I know it's a little hard to see, but you can kind of look and see there's within that green circle there are 10 different domains, and these are 10 different practice domains that sort of are correlated or associated with one another and describe a little bit in more detail things that we do. And all of these practice domains here are within these more profession or organizational wide domains or principles on the outside. So you can see here they're called organizational principles. You probably can't see. It's a little blurry. But anyways, we it's really just to recognize that school psychs sort of work within school systems, right? And so there is this emphasis on things like professional development within schools, supervision within schools, and just other sort of things. Related to more of this systems-wide organizational principles. But we'll go more into detail with the specific domains because that really gets at like the day-to-day things that school psychologists do. So these are, I think I have all. Oh, I guess we'll go into sort of six main ones here. But there's 10 on the model, but we'll go into sort of six major ones as part of the presentation today. Okay, so the first one is looking at assessment and database decision making aimed at improving academic outcomes. So we work to promote student motivation and engagement. We conduct psychological and academic assessments. So we might do things like administer cognitive and academic achievement assessments in order to really understand, ways in which students learn to really help to create individualized plans for students that might be struggling within schools and or help the teacher teach students with learning disabilities or sort of related difficulties. We work with teams to monitor student academic progress over time, collect and interpret student as well as classroom level data, generate and interpret useful student and school outcome data, collect and analyze data on risk and protective factors related to student outcomes. So this again might be things like, collecting data on bullying, experiences of bullying, perceptions of school climate, social emotional factors, mental health, and then planning services at the district, building, classroom, and individual levels. This is one of my favorite things I think about school psychology is that not only do we get the opportunity to work directly and individually with students, whether that's in sort of a one-on-one providing interventions, either an academic intervention or like a mental health intervention, but we also get to work on more classroom-wide interventions. If we have a teacher who might need additional support managing disruptive behavior in the classroom, we get to sort of create and manage and monitor classroom level interventions as well as building level initiatives. And so there's a lot of different variety with that. And with that comes a lot of consultation and collaboration with adults who work with students. So we tend to lead problem-solving processes for planning, implementing, and evaluating all instructional, mental, and behavioral health services within a school building and or district, facilitate effective communication and collaboration among families, teachers, and community providers. And this includes any community providers, outside of the school that the student might be seeing, such as, a clinical psychologist within the community or something like that. And then using those consultation and collaboration when working at the individual classroom, school, or systems level to advocate for change. And then we provide both direct and indirect services for children, families, and schools. And really, when I refer to indirect services, really all that means is working with an adult who then sort of works with, the child. And so, just as one example, I teach consultation for the school psychology grad students in the program. And the whole sort of aim of that course is to really provide information and practice on how to work with teachers, how to provide those consultation services to teachers who then provide those direct services to their students within their classrooms. And so that is, what we mean when we say an indirect service, because we're not providing that direct intervention to the student. Instead, we're guiding and advising an adult, such as the teacher, in providing a service. Um, so we provide both those student level services, so interventions and instructional support to develop academic skills, as well as interventions and support to develop social, emotional, and behavioral support for students as well. And then we also work to provide school-wide preventative and responsive practices and services to promote learning. And then we are also engaged with prevention, crisis intervention, and mental health support. This is also another one of my I think favorite things about a school psychologist is that we do have quite a bit of involvement with prevention. And so, as a school psychologist working within a school building, we have the opportunity to have access to, all children in the community, right, that go or attend to that district, which is a little bit different when you're thinking about like a clinical psychologist, for example, who might only be working with or treating, children and families that are sort of seeking that clinical support within the community. And we have the opportunity to provide prevention and related supports to students, perhaps before it kind of gets to that sort of more severe kind of clinical level. And so that might be things like a small social skills group to a small group of students to help sort of improve social skills, or, working with a student that's, involved in bullying to try and prevent sort of future instances of bullying. So working a little bit more within kind of lower tier or lower levels of support, kind of before it gets to more significant need. Um, we assess student emotional and behavioral needs and support and are involved in social emotional learning. We provide individual and group counseling. We make referrals and help to coordinate community services that are, provided in schools, prevent bullying and other forms of school violence, support SEL or social emotional learning, assess school climate and improve school connectedness, implement school-wide positive behavioral supports, provide crisis prevention and intervention services. And then we also, work with supporting the families within the community as well. So supporting families in understanding their children's learning and mental health needs, assist families with navigating the special education process. When I used to work as a school psychologist in Illinois, so not in this state, but that was one of my favorite things to do was to have families in before formal meetings with the school and tell them about the special education process, tell them about what an individual education plan or an IEP is, sit next to them and sort of be their advocate within the meeting. And so we get to sort of partner and advocate for families. Um, work with generally working with like the school social worker or the school counselor to connect families with community service providers when necessary. I will say school social workers are awesome, at doing like connecting to community services and needs. And so working with the school social worker and collaborating with them on that, supporting the engagement of families with teachers and other school staff, enhancing staff and responsiveness to diverse cultures and backgrounds, and helping students transition between whatever environments they might be transitioning. So between school and community learning environments, such like a residential treatment, for example, or like a juvenile justice system. So trying to support students that might be in and out of the school district for whatever reason, and providing, again, collaborating with the family, maybe working within a team to create a plan for that student. And much of what we do as school psychs is a team-based approach as well. And so, this might seem overwhelming of everything that we do, but almost all of this would be within some sort of a team with other collaborators, including other school mental health practitioners, the child's teacher, school administration, such as the principal. And so a lot of this is, done through this team-based approach. And then we also provide support for diversity and efforts for social justice and inclusion. So we work with the school and the team to assess diverse learning needs, provide culturally and linguistically responsive services to students and families from diverse backgrounds, plan appropriate IEPs for students with disabilities, work with teachers and others to modify and adapt curricula and instruction, adjust classroom facilities and routines to improve student engagement and learning, monitor and effectively communicate with parents about students, and advocate for systems and services that address issues such as race, privilege, prejudice, and power to create sustained equity and opportunity for students. We often see within school systems, they tend to mirror the power imbalances of larger society. So as as school psychologists, again, we're working to sort of advocate for those change. And again, our number one, priority is really ensuring that the student is thriving academically, socially, emotionally, within the school. So we want to make sure that the services and supports within that school system, whether it's provided at the individual classroom level, school-wide level, is appropriate, for the student. And so working and advocating for systems that, are most appropriate for all students. Okay, so that was a lot on the role of the school psych, and I'm sorry if I overwhelmed anyone. The nice thing about school psychologist, I think, is like this: your day is never the same, and so you might have, kind of a planned out day of meetings, maybe working with students, working with teachers, maybe having some district level committee meetings and things like that, and then, you get pulled into a classroom, or you get pulled into a crisis, or you get pulled into something else, and so it's a very exciting. This is definitely not the type of job where you're staring at the clock and waiting for 5 o'clock to come so you can sort of punch out, right, and go home. It's your day just varies so much, and it's very different, from day to day. And so it's exciting and it's really, I think, good work. And so hopefully that didn't overwhelm everyone, but I'm happy to answer questions at the end if anyone has questions about what school psychs do. Okay, so let's get into more specifically the MAAC program here at UB. So we are housed within the Graduate School of Education, and the Graduate School of Education's mission is, with a focus on local to global impact, the Graduate School of Education is an inclusive community engaged in groundbreaking research and teaching across education, human development, and information science that improves educational, social, and economic opportunities for individuals and communities. GSE's vision is as an integral part of a premier research-intensive public institution committed to equity, diversity, justice, and inclusion. The Graduate School of Education will be recognized worldwide for outstanding and transformative research and teaching linked to educational, social, and economic opportunities and outcomes at the individual and collective levels. So these are the school psych faculty members. Dr. Rebecca Vanovic is the program director. She actually usually does these presentations, but she was not able to today. So I am filling in for her, but I do have her contact information at the end here. And we also have Dr. Miles Faith, Dr. Catherine Cook-Catone, Dr. Amanda Nickerson, and myself, Dr. Stephanie Frederick. And so yeah, we make up the core team, and so classes within the program are generally taught by us, and then students within the MAAC program sometimes take courses that are also taught by others within the department, especially related to courses like stats, human development and things like that are taught by other faculty members with expertise in that area, generally in like educational psychology, developmental psychology, or something like that. We all have, active research programs, and we look at a variety of issues, related to school psychology. So our program is accredited by the National Association of School Psychologists, and we primarily focus on a practitioner scientist model. And really what this means is, we like to teach evidence-based practices, within our coursework. And so we're looking at, research and evidence that supports things that work, right, within schools. And then those are the things that we teach within our coursework. And we also teach students to be consumers of research. We teach students how to interpret research, how to do research, how to evaluate it, how to talk to others about research, because we do think that research is an important part of being a school psychologist. So upon successful completion of the program, you'll be eligible for New York State initial certification as a school psychologist. And then the program does require you to be fully in person, and it is also a full-time place-based programs. So we do have practicum experiences. We send our students to schools in Western New York. And so students can expect to be taking classes on campus and actively working within local school districts. So we advise that students are available throughout the typical school day hours, which is Monday through Friday, 8 to 4. And then some unique features of UB's program. Students do have the opportunity to gain hands-on experience working in a school and assessing children beginning right away in the fall semester. So this is tied to the Introduction to School Psych course, where you go in with your classmates and you're fully supervised and you start providing assessments to students right away as part of that coursework there in that fall semester. And that sort of continues on throughout the year. There's opportunity for in-depth training under supervised conditions in both the direct and indirect service models, as articulated in the school psych literature. So throughout the courses, we have integrated opportunities to practice all of these things that are associated with the NASP practice model. And usually it's tied to your assigned practicum placements. Students have additional opportunities to gain experience beyond coursework by working with a faculty member and conducting research. This is voluntary. Students have the opportunity to do that, but it's not required to do sort of additional individualized research with a faculty member. And we also collaborate with several other departments and agencies, allowing UB students to gain paid employment in positions relevant to the field of school psychology. And probably the most common one is our partnership with like UB Athletics, in which students are able to work in athletics, as part of a paid employment. And then the program overview. So it is considered a Master of Arts with Advanced Certificate, which is where the MA/AC comes from. 63 credit program, 6 full-time semesters. So it's 2 full years of on-campus coursework. And then the third year is a full-time internship within the school district. Um, and that third year, you're required to do 1,200 hours, which is equivalent to 1 school year. The application deadline for the program is February 1st. And then this is an example course sequence here. So you can see in the fall semester 1, you'll take a psychology measurement and intellectual assessment class, the perspectives in school psychology. That is, I often call that like our intro to school psych class. That is the one that's tied to a field placement for that for your first year. You'll take a foundations of counseling theories and collaboration for school safety. In the spring of your first year, you'll take a school-wide practices for diverse learners class, another psychological assessment of children and adolescents. This one's focused a little bit more on academic achievement testing. You'll take a counseling with children and adolescents course, and then a specialized counseling techniques course. And then you are required to take a couple summer classes, so multicultural counseling and human growth and development within the summer. And then looking ahead to year 2, you'll take a stats class, and then you'll take a practicum seminar. So starting in year 2, students start their more formalized practicum experiences. In that year 2, students are in a school-based practicum 2 full days a week. So about 16 hours a week, and then they're in a practicum seminar for 3 hours a week. You'll also take an advanced theories in psychotherapy course and then a behavior therapy with children and adolescents course. And then the spring of your second year, you'll be in practicum class again. You'll have a consultation class. You'll have a class where you'll learn about interventions to develop academic skills. And then you'll take a research course, which is all about sort of school psychology related research and sort of teaching you to be consumers of research. And then that third year, you would not be in any formal classes. You would be in that full-time internship setting, with the exception that you would have one supervised seminar, which is held virtually in on one evening a week. So, in thinking about preparing for grad school, you are required to have a bachelor's degree in psychology, child development, sociology, education, or a related field in education. That said, students from other degree programs are also encouraged to apply as well. We also look for some sort of prior work experience with children and youth. So, whether that's working as a counselor in a summer camp, working within the school in some capacity, working as part of the YMCA or a mentoring program, working as like a teacher's aide or a substitute teacher, for example. One nice thing is sometimes students have completed some sort of an undergrad internship in school psychology where they've sort of shadowed, a school psychologist. And this isn't really required, but things like having research experience, working as part of a research lab in undergrad, or sort of interest in the kind of the research to practice link. And then commitment or involvement in community related organizations that are dedicated to social justice, equity, and inclusion in education. I mean, really overall, let me see what the next slide is before I Oh, yeah. So really overall, what we're sort of looking for is kind of, with applications is some sort of, in addition to, prior kind of solid academic coursework and things like that, kind of a well-rounded application that shows interest and leadership and involvement in things, particularly with a school focus or sort of a child and adolescent focus, is kind of what we're looking for. And again, we're looking at like applications as a whole. When you're applying for grad school, no GRE is required. There is an application fee of $50. You will need to provide contact information for at least three individuals who will be asked to provide a letter of recommendation for you. Unofficial transcripts from all the colleges that you've attended is required. And you would need to write a statement of intent, which indicates, why you want to become a school psychologist, any experience. It would sort of explain any experiences you've had working with children and adolescents or working within a school setting. And then also a diversity background statement, which describe any interest and experience you've had working with individuals from different backgrounds other than yourself, and how these experiences have influenced you. And that's 300 to 400 words. And again, that deadline is February 1st. So I will stop talking there. I do just want to share with you Dr. Rebecca Vanovic's contact information so you can see her phone number and her email is there. You are welcome to contact me. I didn't put my contact information up there. I'm just not realizing, but a quick Google search, you'll find my email on the UB website. But I will stop talking, and maybe I'll stop sharing my screen, and then I'm happy to answer any and all questions that people have at this point.